Hi folks, what you're looking at here is me being lit by the classic 3-light setup. So basically any 3-light setup, and we'll be covering this in the notes, involves a key light, a fill light and a backlight. The purpose of the key light is to illuminate the subject. The purpose of the fill light is to counteract any shadows that the key light is throwing. And the purpose of the backlight is to separate the subject from the background that he or she is seated against. And what you're looking at here, my key light is coming at me from up high and from this side of the screen. You can see that this side of my face is slightly brighter than this side of my face. So what I have going on here is my main key light tilted down, warming me up from this side, not looking me directly in the eyes so I'm blinded, but high enough and tilted down at a 45-degree angle so that I'm illuminated but not overly lit. On the opposite side, we have what is called a reflector board, which I will show you when we go out to the wide shot. The purpose of this is to basically bounce the light that's coming in from this side off a reflector board on this side and bounce it back onto the side of my face so that there's no ugly shadows on this side of the face. Directly behind me and up high we have what is called a backlight. Again, the backlight is tilted down at a 45-degree angle, and the purpose of it is not so much to illuminate the subject but rather to separate the subject from the background. And finally, on the floor behind me, I have a standard standalone light with a gel on it, one of the Sackler kits that we have, and I'm using that to just basically give a reddish warm glow to the black curtain, which as you can see is folded behind me. This is the main light, tungsten light, which is illuminating me, and you can see that it's exactly like the cool light systems that we introduced you to in the studio. We look at it in more detail momentarily, but it's basically a rectangular box with some diffuse fabric over the front of it, and a bulb that illuminates by spreading off the reflective surfaces of the inside of the box and therefore doesn't throw hard shadows. On the side of me here, reflecting the light thrown by that fill light is what, or rather that key light, is what we call the fill light. And the fill light in this instance is not a fill, it's simply a reflective board. So it's mounted on a C-bar tripod and it's positioned in such a way that the light coming from the key light above me here bounces off this and reflects back on this side of my face here to counteract shadows. I'm going to just momentarily turn off the key light so that you can see the effect of the backlight behind me. So basically when I sit down here, you can see that the backlight is not illuminating my face. I'm not talking about the standard light on the red curtain behind me now. I'm literally talking about the light that you can see just up in the top of your screen over here. It's not illuminating my face, but you can see that once the camera focuses up, there's a clear definition between my hairline and the red curtain behind me, and that creates the sense of three-dimensionality that we're looking for in terms of interview framing. I'm going to turn on the key light again, and now you can see the combined effect of the 3 lights, well rather 2 electrical lights and 1 reflector board. We'll be looking at those lights individually and how we set them up, but for now I just want to point out that lighting is all about mood. It's about creating an aesthetic, it's creating a sense. So if you're doing a darker, more downbeat piece, something that's to do with kind of depression or suicide or one of those darker subjects, then obviously the presence of shadows is all about creating that kind of mood. A red light doesn't necessarily suit that story. A blue light probably does suit that story to create again that sense of kind of emotional blueness, that kind of washed out sense. So always look that lighting encapsulates the mood that you're trying to get across in terms of your piece. So in this instance, all I've done, I still have the same lighting setup. My key light is still illuminating me on this side of my face. My reflector board is bouncing the light onto this side of my face, and my backlight behind me is separating me from the subject. However, all I've done here is I've removed the studio light, the Sackler light that we had the red gel on, and I pulled a green curtain behind me, the green screen from the cyclorama. So you can see the effects of this. I can now decide to put whatever background I want behind me. So this takes care of secondary lights in relation to trying to illuminate stuff in the background behind the subject that creates a further sense of distance. So the first of the lights that we encounter takes the largest of the tripods. So let's start with this. These are all Photoflex tripods, very easy to manage. Simply left to loosen, bring the legs out like so. Push down in such a way that the legs provide the support, not the center bar. Lock the legs once they're given sufficient support, and then use the wheels here to raise or lower to whatever height you want to operate from. For demonstration purposes, I'm just bringing it up as far as there. You can see they're standard tripods. The thing to remember is the largest tripod with the key light the next largest tripod or middle-sized tripod with the fill light, the reflector board. So with this one, we now have this weird looking screwdriver device. This is what enables us to mount the key light onto the tripod. So you can see the tripod hole down here, drop it down, loosen the screw if needed, and then lock into position. Once it's locked, I can demonstrate the screwdriver here. So left to loosen means you can actually tilt the head, and right to tighten means you lock it in whatever angle you want. So I'm keeping it locked for the moment, and I'm going to the next piece of the key light kit, which is this little Photoflex professional starlight system. You can see the plug socket on the back. The important thing to note with this is this bar here goes into the 12 o'clock position when mounted. So in other words, when I'm mounting this onto the tripod, I want this little sticky out bar up here protruding from the top, as you can see, in the 12 o'clock position. The wheel here, left to loosen, slide it in from the front. Once you've slid it in, lock it into position, right to tighten. You can see the advantage now of the screwdriver here. Left to loosen, I can tilt it up, I can tilt it down, right to tighten. On the front of this, there's a protective plate. When we remove the protective plate, which we will put back in the lighting bag for safety, you can see the little screw in for the bulb. Best suggestion is not to handle it with your hands. It comes in a little protective case. It's a screw in. So basically line it up and clockwise to screw it in and let it screw into position like so. But we won't do that just now because first we have to put the silver dome case onto the setup. So how do we do that? Well, the next piece you will find is this funny little wheel, and if you look at it close you can see it's 3 circular holes and then 3 holes that to all intents and purposes look like a duck's head. We line the 3 duck's heads up with the 3 screws on the outside here. So it's basically a question of lining up like so, getting the screws into position like so, and once they're in position you can pull back the lever that I said had to be in the 12 o'clock position, and now you can twist that gently clockwise and it locks this outer wheel onto the inner wheel. So this turns, this doesn't. Find an angle where you've got an arrow pointing upwards, and next we take our silver dome, which enables us to create the dome itself. This comes in its own separate safety bag, and you can see clearly marked silver dome, and it's a material version of the cool boxes that I've introduced you to in the studio already. So when we open it up, you can clearly see that it's basically filled with reflective material on the inside, and that will quadruple the amount of light coming out from our bulb. There are 4 bendy spikes, so we basically go north, south, east, west. So I'm going to attach the north to the top one here, stick it in. I'm going to go to the south, attach it to the bottom one down here. Again, following the little arrows on the top and bottom, 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock. And then you complete the final 2, again into the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock position. And you can see it's beginning to take shape. There's a series of Velcro options on the dome cover here. So basically we Velcro them into position. And once they're Velcroed into position, tightly shut so at a minimum of light in the back way here where the light is, you can see we have an approximate rectangular shape. What we can now do is turn it into proper rectangular. I'll tilt that down so you can see it a bit better. You can see the amount of reflection going on with it already. So I've shown you how to put the bulb in. I'm just going to screw that bulb in now. So again, don't touch the bulb, just pop it out of its case and gently clockwise. You can feel when it takes and you'll feel when it stops. So no force, just gentle turning. The bulb is now in position. And we now get this kind of like the neutral density filter. It's a bit of diffused material. We don't want to touch this because it's white. If it gets stained, it will throw horrible shadows. So it's got Velcro all around the outer sides. We just touch the corners with the Velcro, and we now Velcro this onto our unit here, and that enables it to hold shape. And you can see that we've now very definitely got a rectangular shaped cool light box. The final step is to plug said box in. In terms of the cabling, the power switch, as you can see, is on the back of the light here, so I'm going to pop that in. The on-off switch is halfway down the cable, green on or off, plug at the bottom. You bear with me 1 second here. I can turn the light on and you can see the overall effect there. So it's a gentle glow. It doesn't throw hard shadows, it doesn't blind, but we still bring it up using the screwdriver, tilt it down to about 45 degrees, and the general approach is to raise this as high as the tripod will allow you. So we're basically bringing it all the way up, looking down on our subject but not blinding our subject. You saw the way it was set up in the start of this video, so follow that example. I'm going to turn it off, and we're now going to look at dismantling. Dismantling is a little bit trickier. Obviously the first thing to do is plug it out. With the plug section removed, again following the law of all cable, just drape, it will find its natural shape. So drape like so. You can put one turn in the end there if you want, that's the way it'll go back into the camera bag. We now need to remove, firstly, screwdriver left up, our diffuser here, which we don't touch the center of so it doesn't get stained and throw shadows. We peel from the top corners and grabbing one corner at a time, we remove. And then again, holding by the corners, fold it into 1/4 of its size with the Velcro facing outwards the first time and just let it flop like so. I'll show you where that goes back in the bag when we're packing away. This leaves us with the frame of our box. However, the bulb is the priority here. These bendy metal bars have metal tips. If they hit the bulb, it will smash them. So before you remove this cover, get your cover again, place it over the bulb, and this time you're turning anti-clockwise to remove the bulb. The bulb may be hot if the light has been on for any length of time, so always give these lights time to cool down when you're working with electric light. You can then give it a tap safely into its bag. And now you can remove this outer cover. Pull the Velcro apart. You can clearly see where the bars are engaged, so remove 2 at a time. And then this just folds once and twice in on itself and goes back into its handy little silver dome bag. To remove our outer ring from our main light, we now need to pull this little lever we talked about earlier backwards. That pops in the little screw that's holding it in place here, and now we can turn from our duck beaks to our duck heads, and this comes out smoothly. And for protection, we then screw in the ceramic cover, because if it's got hot, there's a danger it might crack and break. Once we've done that, left to loosen, slide out of position, right to tighten, and then screwdriver head off, left to loosen, and tripod back down to its lowest possible height. So down to its lowest height, and then left to loosen, raise into the legs, push and lock. That is your key light.